So welcome to the first of the Stellar Relationships videos. I'm going to introduce the larger themes and broader concepts in this first video. And you'll see that they mostly relate to gender and feeling empowered in our gender. And so you see on this first screen it says Stellar Relationships. That's the name of the system that's going to help you learn about the nature of relationships, the nature of yourself in relationships, the energies within you, how they interact with others, and then how to ultimately be able to tell if another person is going to generally vibe with you so that you can avoid wasting a lot of time and heartache. So in this first video, we're going to talk about our gender identity and confusion. I find this is at the heart of most of the reasons why we suffer in relationships in the modern world. What is it to be an empowered man and an empowered woman? And our cultural programming versus our biological heritage, and how those things influence each other. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So you see that it says here the main reason we suffer in relationships is because we don't know who we are as an individual first. Now, this sounds like a just sort of obvious plaintiff here to say, well, we don't know who we are first, that's why we suffer. Well, yes, that's true. But specifically in relationships, the reason or the type of identity problem we have is gender. You see, gender identity is the confusion we face in relationships. So, however, every time we suffer in life for something, let's say we suffer in our career. The reason we suffer in our career is because we have a problem with our power identity or our responsibility identity. Because that's what allows us to advance in our career. We know how to handle power well, we know how to advance, we know how to handle responsibility, so we advance in our career. But in relationships, the confusion we face is mainly due to our gender, because it's our gender strength that's being tested in relationships. Whether you're a man or a woman, and whether you're in a straight or gay relationship, all those things are still the same. It's the gender identity that is getting challenged in a relationship. So, what is a powerful man and what is a powerful woman? And again, if you're in a gay relationship, it also works because there's usually going to be more of a masculine partner and more of a feminine partner. So, but in general, we'll use a paradigm of man and woman for now. What is a powerful man and a powerful woman? Due to the oppression of women for thousands of years, and mass media and negative cultural programming, we have a lot of confusion about the sexes. Because for thousands of years, of course, women were oppressed. They were denied rights. They were victimized by men. And this has left a great scar on their psyche. And we're just now recovering from this oppression of women. Denied the right to vote, denied the right to work, all kinds of stuff. It's amazing that this happened. Beyond that, now we're also in a world where, because of capitalism and all this stuff, women are just terribly exploited as well. Their bodies are exploited to sell things, and so women are very aware of this. But it's not just women. Men are also turned into stereotypical sort of caricatures. Men are portrayed as either oppressors or, in some way trying to oppress women. So it's these two sort of caricatures of man, the oppressor, woman, the victim, man, the exploiter, woman, the exploited, men trying to dominate women, women trying not to be dominated. Like, this is a very sort of cartoonish quality to the empowered masculine and feminine energies, which is what we all have. Each person has masculine and feminine energy within them, but women typically identify more with their feminine nature, men typically identify more with their masculine nature. But it's this negative cultural programming that has led to a lot of confusion about the sexes. And in fact, for all of its flaws, the old paradigm when women were oppressed, although it certainly was not effective, at least people knew their roles. But the roles themselves were also very distorted and unhealthy. So we're waking up to a better choice, but we're now in a netherworld between the old paradigm and the new. Think about it. When we talk about the modern sort of approach, women are taught, the sort of modern woman is a tough woman, she's not going to take it. She's going to stand up for herself. She's going to be just as much a go-getter as a man and things like that. But think about it. Does a strong woman feel fulfilled competing with men in a relationship or even just in life? Generally, women get somewhat drained by that sort of competition. Women still want to be women, but because it's, quote, a man's world and they're liberated now, they use a lot of their masculine energy. And of course, now the modern paradigm for men, at least the ideal, is to be the sensitive man. The man who is sensitive to women, and he's not an oppressor, he's not a brute. He wouldn't ever dream of doing that. He's just as sensitive and passive as a woman, he's just as sensitive. But think about it, does a strong man feel fulfilled in that passive sensitive role? And actually beyond that, does a woman feel fulfilled by a passive sensitive man? I mean, ultimately fulfilled. Yes, women like men to be passive, but women also are attracted to men who are masculine. It's our biological programming, like we'll discuss in a minute. And does a strong man actually feel fulfilled by a strong woman who's competing with them? The answer is no. And you probably already realize this. So the roles that we've carved out for ourselves are so ambiguous, because the strong woman who is competing and not taking any guff off the man is also having to evoke something very unnatural in herself. Similarly, the man who is trying to be so sensitive that he demasculates himself is also going against nature. So the problem is that we don't understand what the powerful masculine and the powerful feminine role is because of these sort of caricatures that I already discussed. So remember, our biological programming, however, is much older than our cultural programming, meaning the biology within us, the man who is hardwired to be masculine and the woman who is hardwired to be feminine, is much older than the modern sensibilities that have been a sort of backlash to the oppression and the perverted masculine and feminine roles that preceded it. So even though now women are trying to be much more assertive and masculine and men are trying to be much more sensitive, our biological programming is directly opposite this. So we have to try to find out what's the truth behind all of this. But we should always remember this: biological programming is much older than our cultural programming. And so we have this, this realization: a man should never feel bad about pursuing a woman, and a woman should never feel bad about the urge to be receptive to a man. It's very natural, and this is what naturally happens anyway in pretty much every relationship to some extent, is the man is supposed to or should have some sort of pursuit. Otherwise he's not going to feel like he's the man, and the woman needs to feel like she's receptive and that she's receiving. Otherwise she's not going to bond to her feminine side. This is deeply programmed within us, that men bond when they are in the initiating role and women bond when they're in the receptive role, especially in relationships, but in life in general as well. So human relationships are hardwired for the woman to be in the receptive role and the man to be in the initiating role. And this is where people oftentimes have a lot of trouble, because they are immediately programmed to think that, oh, the woman in the receptive role means that she's going to be victimized, means that she's going to be oppressed, means that she's going to be weak. There's nothing weak about being receptive. In fact, receptivity is the strength of the woman. They're good at receptivity. Men are not good at receptivity. Men are good at initiating. And so this is how Stellar Relationships approaches things from the very beginning. And it works through the yogic paradigm, the paradigm of the 5 elements and all the things that are much bigger than just relationships, but you'll see the same correlations. So Stellar Relationships is at its heart an education about the interplay of empowered masculine and feminine energies and how they interact with each other in an empowered way, not through the perverted, distorted way that we're now familiar with. So this is the first video to just introduce you to the concepts, and I look forward to sending you more. Have a great day.